During World War II, the camera also went to war, recording the courage and heroism of our troops in battle each day. But rarely do you see the camera and the men behind it who risked the same dangers of the soldiers to send back their pictures and stories. Cameramen were always on the job, in the air, at sea, and in the trenches. It all began during World War I, when the man standing on the left behind the camera, D.W. Griffith, thrilled the audiences of the day with the first footage of the new secret weapon, a tank. Cameramen have been hard at work ever since.
This is the real thing. During the thick of the fight with our assault squad, as the cameraman finds what cover he can under a low wall, he contrasts the smoothness of the destroyer sailing on snow, it seems, with flames that melt the snow all round. Like the wireless operators, the cameraman's job is a highly specialized one. He must work a complicated camera and work it right with hell let loose around him. He comes face to face with the enemy in more senses than one. His sense of humor makes him film and nastily notice forbidding photography before taking the pictures you've just seen. Another of our tanks under heavy fire. Jack Ramsden of Multimedia. His assignment is a daylight raid over occupied Europe. His main care is his camera. It's carefully and accurately fitted to the door of a flying fortress. It's covered with an electric blanket to prevent the motor freezing up. Every precaution is taken to ensure you're seeing good pictures if the cameraman gets banged. All set now except for his oxygen mask and heavy gloves, not easy to work in, but necessary at these terrific heights if he's to get pictures like long shot. Paramount's straight in another fortress takes up where the bomb aimer leads off. They're over an Italian cove, pattern bombing it for enemy submarines. Wouldn't you think his fingers would tremble with excitement? The pictures are steady as a rock. Cameraman nearly was on this convoy, but he kept his trigger finger going as he did when the camera bucked on the job at Malta, when it was shaken by mortar fire in Bridgestone, as shelling jolted it in the western desert, and one of our tanks being snipers out of tune rocked it. It swayed from the blast of sea, punching at the enemy. And in this landing, changing over from sea to land at Sicily, the cameraman had only his camera to hang on to, but he kept it running. Despite violent, evasive action, this RAF man focused steadily on the raging fires below. And then suddenly came the unexpected. 1,000,000 to 1 chance, and a 4,000-pound incendiary was hit by just as it left the... It burst into flames. The sudden glare outlined the aircraft, blinded its occupant. The pilot flung his ship about still more violently, but the RAF cameraman somehow or other kept lined up on his target, that falling mass of fire. The unexpected on the ground this time. 300 yards away, an ammo dump goes up. The cameraman swings onto the burning embers and debris while they're still in the air. He dodges a windowsill to get this close up. Would you fancy calmly taking pictures in this rain of shrapnel? A bridge is mined in the low country. The rubble drops nearer and nearer, but only the camera moves to record chunks of masonry falling at the feet of Charles Martin's path. To a cameraman, it's all in the day's work. Not jumping to these red devils, the parachute troops of the British Army. One after another they go. And the cameraman goes with them, taking all the time as he drops down to earth. And minding his camera as he lands. Under crossfire between ships en route for Russia, the cameraman can't always get the picture he wants. On this Arctic convoy, Ewins hung on to a Nazi plane that was hit, but when it crashed, it was out of camera range. The Navy grinned as he cursed his luck, but here's one that didn't get away, and as he hung on to this shot, thought after thought raced through the cameraman's mind. Will any ship get between me and that plane? Will they hit us in the meantime? Can I get this safely back to England? Shall I have enough film to get the final dive? There was enough film. He got his picture. All was well, and to John Turner of Gaumont British, it was the shot of a lifetime. Meet Ronnie Noble of Universal News. He was taken prisoner in 1940, but before he was captured, he lighted the camera and got remarkable shots of North infantry under fire. Army stuck to it. So did Noble. That wasn't far away. Nor was this one either. The driver of this camera car was killed. But Eric Tozer of Movietone got off with only a smashed tripod and lived to get his great prisoner of war. Thousands of Italians rounded up in Africa. From a photographic point of view, these pictures are worth keeping. But do you remember how they cheered you in 1940? They're historic, too. They record many of Italy's downfall and the smashing of Mussolini's empire. Much nearer home, the camera goes into action off Dover. The fort is under fire. Even the whine of shells was recorded. From the cliffs, they film another salvo. Two pretty close, where's the third? The locals say they always come in threes. Yes, there she blows. Our land convoys are under fire. Terrestwood is there to shoot, to be shot at. A whistle of shells. He swings left and holds on to another salvo of three. He gets a fresh angle over the side of the truck. Now the driver's view of being under fire. 1940, and London was under fire. From the top of St. Paul's, from the dome itself, the camera looks down on the city ablaze. All through the blitz, services and newsreel cameramen did a splendid job of work. This one happens to be Peter Cannon of Gaumont. The Army and the Crown Film units were out many nights. The National Fire Service unit worked non-stop, often stopping their cameras to give a hand with a hose. Wherever our armies have gone, the camera has been with them. It supplies these Nazis in West Africa, and this Hermann Goering youth in Tunisia. Depressed and disillusioned, he can't face the camera. Equally steady behind the camera was Patrice Jock Gemmell when he took this record of the action. The camera shows you both sides of the picture. It's not far off as a Spitfire crashes into the sea. And it's on the spot as the search for the pilot finds him still floating in his Mae West. With the Navy on the job, he's soon amongst friends again. A little dazed, but glad to be safe. He's surprised to see they've got everything on board, even the newsreel camera. Pilot in action meets cameraman in action.
The motion pictures of war that were taken by these cameramen were used primarily in newsreels of the day and seen all over the free world. One of these newsreel accounts was the powerful 957th day.
This is the 957th day of our war, day 957. From the islands already conquered, small islands where Americans fought, the fleet has set sail once more westward. It's day 957, another D-Day in the Pacific, not unlike day 956 or day 958 to come. For day 957, everything is ready. For instance, here are today's shells.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, day 957. This date, Pittsburgh will deliver 85,000 tons of steel. Out of the steel will come shells for the fleet, the metal of guns, the hulls of ships.
The steel will be well used. It will be used here on day 957 by the 5th Fleet as it sails to a new battle. It will serve, too, in the covering air arm.
Target dead ahead. Target dead ahead.
The carriers stand by waiting. A battle is teamwork. Each craft has its own job. So first, the scout planes must see what the enemy is up to. And from the carriers, the fighters join, eager for the kill. Now the battleships speak, the mighty ones, shouting through the 16 inches. Bombers complete the team, the Avengers. Yes, The Navy works as a team. Here are the coaches and the battle plan. Here are the ships, the guns, and above all, here are the men. Men at work, firing the guns, clearing the path for the hand-to-hand fight to come. Men will die here so that others may live to fight another day. One more D-Day. One day closer to Tokyo. Yes, men will die here. Our men. The Avengers attack with all bomb bays open. The 40 millimeters let loose, the tracers finding the accurate marksmanship. Almost H-hour. Now is the time for rest before looking the Jap in the eye. But not all the team is resting. Before the last smoke screen must be lit, phosphorus shells are shot onto the beaches. Smoke is thick enough to cover a landing. The small craft loaded with fighting men rendezvous. The big guns cooperating fire a continuous barrage.
Launch the first wave. Launch the first wave. USA, J957. The St. Louis Browns are leading the American League by 3 games. In Chicago this summer morning, the thermometer hit 52 degrees, the strangest behavior of mercury in the Windy City since 1895.
They're all here. The swimming tanks, the landing craft, the LSTs. Yes, they're all here, including the American men.
New York, New York, day 957. Number 1 tune on the hit parade this week is I'll Be Seeing You.
A beachhead is established. The men move inland. There is always the enemy. This is what the ships did to the enemy so that the men on the beaches could live.
USA, day 957. Reacting to good war news, the stock market went off 1 to 3 points. In Cleveland, Ohio, John M. Scanlon, age 76, received a medal for not missing a work day since December 8, 41, 956 days ago.
Softening up from the bombardment was accurate and devastating. Objectives were achieved, including these objectives. It always comes down to man against man.
Washington, D.C., day 957. The Selective Service announced today that the national quota for this month is 100,000.
The team moves inland now toward the high mountains. The fate of the enemy is sealed. Men must die to capture an island. There are many islands along the way.
USA, day 957. A horse named Singing Lass paid $68 for two in the first of Jamaica. Triplets were born to Mr. and Mrs. Luke Young of Oklahoma City. And on this day, thousands of miles away, the men who fought at dawn and some who fell at noon thought of home.
Objective secured.
This was the 957th day of our war. Tomorrow will be the 958th.
Mission Completed was a similar film chronicling the return of crippled planes to their carrier after a successful mission.
They left it on the planes from our carrier. 68 with 100 of our men. Mission to blast and burn Jap in Tokyo Bay, 400 miles away. 100 of our men, 100 of our friends. We want them back. We'd like to see something besides clouds in that sky about now. We don't like that empty sky when it ought to be full of our friends. 400 miles, 200 out, 200 back. It isn't much, really. It's the flak and the zeros in between. 100 men went out. We try to believe 100 will return. Never happens that way, though. You just hope for the best. You just wait and sweat it out. They're overdue now. We hope nothing's gone wrong.
Stand by to take aircraft aboard. Stand by to take aircraft aboard.
Here come the first ones, 4 of them. Now to bring them in. We know it won't be easy for some of them. It won't be easy for this one. Wheel up. His hydraulic system's gone. Once you're landing, sober you up. When they don't kill you. Glad you made it, Joe. Wingman of the 8th Division. A little back in the tail, no damage. 60 planes out, 42 back so far. McLean's Hellcat there will make it 43. Steady, Mac. Steady!
Wave the next plane off. Wave that plane off.
Deck's a little messed up for the moment. Sorry, Mac. We couldn't see your rudder was gone, but your hands aren't hurt, Mac. You'll fly again. Here comes Pete Erickson, fast with his rudder control shot away. Mission completed. The plane, $80,000. The pilot's training, $50,000. Pete Erickson's life, we can't put a value on a man's life, but we can make sure that all the Pete Ericksons have the best tools to fight with. We can make sure by buying war bonds and more war bonds. Only then is our mission completed.
Materials such as these were often used to promote the sale of war bonds to help fund the war. They were extremely successful in drumming up American patriotism and consequently American dollars. Films like Battle for the Beaches showed the public how their money was being spent. In this instance, it was for new machinery which enabled new ways to attack the enemy from the beachfront.
The cliffs of Dover overlooking the beaches of England, June 1940. In this bleak hour, the people of Britain are rallied to defend their island home by the Prime Minister.
We shall fight on beaches, in fields, in streets, and on the hills. We shall never surrender.
1944, across the Channel. The coast of France today, nearly 4 years later. Here, under the Nazi lash, the captive people of Europe fortify the beaches against the tempest of attack gathered across the way. The Nazis themselves keep a nervous vigil. Along this beach, the tide of history is turning because on dozens of other beaches and distant seas, men have fought and died. The sands of Africa, on the islands of the Pacific, on the once green coasts of Italy. My job as war correspondent has taken me along with the men who fought some of these campaigns, and I have spoken with many of them.
Did you get any trouble, Colonel?
No, we didn't have much trouble today.
Find the target all right?
You bet we did.
You did?
Yeah, we really passed it.
When sculptors carve memorials to the heroes of this war, my guess is they will show a man dashing from a landing craft and hitting the beach, just as the doughboy went over the top from a trench in the last war. In this war, wherever we have gone into action, we have first fought for a strip of beach. We are fighting an amphibious war, a battle for the beaches. 4 years ago, our allies lost the last corner of Europe, the beach at Dunkirk. The conqueror rolled his armies to the Channel. Only 20 miles of water lay between mighty Hitler and final victory. 20 miles an American girl named Gertrude Ederle once swam in 15 hours. Surely then, the great dictator could cross this ditch and crush England forever. At Channel ports, he rounded up a collection of barges, fishing smack ferries, boats of any kind. His big guns shelled England. The people of Britain braced themselves. They must bear few guns to guard the beaches. The Royal Navy stood resolute watching the North Sea. While the fighter pilots of the RAF were writing their page of glory over England, their bomber pilots made daily runs against the invasion coast of Nazi France. The peculiar hazards of amphibious operations baffled the masters of Europe. They decided not to wade out beyond their depth. They wheeled their legions to the east to tackle the Russian bear. For any fight on land seemed a better gamble than fighting from the water. But the seafaring people of Britain undertook amphibious experiments that were to change the course of war. The coasts of Norway and Nazi Europe were stung by prowlers from the sea, by commando raids, daring jabs at Bogso and the Lofoten Islands, rehearsals, portents of the mass invasions to come. Across the earth, the other enemy, Japan, no longer held in check after Pearl Harbor, carried out its plan of empire, ran amok up the islands, pillaged the Pacific down to the very coast of Australia. As America squared off for the fight, our Navy faced a challenge: to carry armies across the seas and disembark them, not in some protected harbor, but directly upon the beaches of the enemy, under fire.
We must move a strong force from ship to shore against fortifications.
Between dark and dawn, armored divisions must be beached against opposition. What will it take?
What will it take? It took plenty. New weapons, landing craft. Since 1936, some of these craft had been developed by the Navy. Others were the result of secrets learned commando experience. The builders took over the blueprints. The workers rolled up their sleeves and pledged themselves to lay it on the line, pronto. Materials and parts and motors flowed together from every corner of the land. By new methods, keels and frames were assembled, made sturdy enough to withstand the shock of hitting the beach that always before had meant shipwreck to mariners. At prairie plants and coastal yards, the ugly ducklings began to hatch, ready to carry invasion. Men, too, were getting ready to hit the beach from landing craft. Soldiers are land fighters, but many now learn to fight from the surf. A man worth his freight to the beach must be a specialist, must do his own particular job on the fighting team. Every branch of every service is welded into the cutting edge of an amphibious striking force. At the same time, in the Pacific, our fleet was scoring triumphs at Midway and Kula Gulf, in the Coral Sea, and at Cape Esperance, whittled down the enemy and tore openings for the great amphibious assaults to come. When an amphibious operation starts from a base, the transports are combat loaded. Every man, every weapon is logged aboard according to fighting plan, set to come off the ship and go into action in the order needed on the combat shore. The invasion fleet is screened by escort vessels. An aircraft carrier shields them with an umbrella of planes. As the convoy approaches the theater of operations, a sharp lookout is kept for enemy planes. Our fighter planes take off to bring down an enemy snooper detected trailing the convoy and out of range of our guns. Plane is caught, tries to crash our carrier deck. When they reach the rendezvous area, the task force commander and the shore fighting general analyze conditions, adjust their plans, and freeze them. They pass the word down the line. The carriers launch their planes to cover the operation. Troops get themselves ready. The small landing craft, the LCPs, are lowered away to circle until they take aboard the raider parties which will hit the beach first. The naval barrage begins, softening up enemy shore installations as at Guadalcanal, at Bougainville in November 1943, and at Tarawa a few weeks later. From the air, our flying guns destroyed Jap planes on the ground and knocked them out of the sky. meantime, our first wave of landing craft was proceeding full speed towards the shore. As they come within range, they begin to run gauntlet of enemy fire. There are no foxholes offshore. The assault wave hits the beach, crosses the beach, digs in, and holds. This boy and his rifle are at this moment the spear point of America. Only through the inches and yards of beach these men win can we funnel more men and equipment to expand the attack. Offshore under fire, the transports are unloading guns and howitzers to be carried in the next attack wave by the middleweight landing craft. They hit the beach along with the amphibious craft, which the boys call the alligator, the duck, and the water buffalo. The enemy is pressed back further, burned out of his caves and pillboxes. Now we hold the strip of beach and can organize it to pass supplies inland to the fire line. The bulldozer comes ashore to handle heavy utility work. CBs and engineers lay a wire road for wheeled vehicles. Ahead, the assault waves are devouring ammunition. The area we control is now mopped up and prisoners are brought in. The team is tied together by communications. The beachmaster relays the requirements of the shore commander to the waiting ships. Tank lighters drop their ramps, and out rolls the heavy stuff. The bow of a tank landing ship, the LST, opens wide like Jonah's good whale, and the steel shapes of war ride into battle to deliver the heavyweight wallop which will win the objective. We took the Aleutians. We took the islands of the Pacific from Guadalcanal to the Marshalls. By fighting with sheer heart, we blasted the enemy, crumpled his walls, and we have many new airfields. Thus, as we grow stronger in weapons for this new kind of war, we will land on other islands and on other shores. Wherever the waves break on Axis Beach, the enemy has come to fear our power to invade. The attack against Germany began when we took a continent, Africa, because our landings were on a scale beyond anything the Axis powers themselves could match over water. From our great African base, we attacked Sicily. Our bombs ruined the harbors, bottled up the ships, cut off supplies from the mainland. Our airborne troops floated down to block the roads. A great fleet of invasion craft, many of them infantry landing craft, LCIs, shuttled across the Mediterranean and landed their men. The divisions which defended the island collapsed. With Sicily in our hands, we landed large forces on the heel and toe of Italy. An amphibious fleet headed up the coast, bypassing miles of enemy coastline, and struck at Salerno deep in enemy territory. As I stood on the beach at Salerno, I marveled at the individual efforts of so many soldiers and sailors could be organized and woven into a pattern of war effective enough to push through that curtain of hellfire the entrenched enemy was sending against us. But Italy itself was no mere island like Sicily to be taken in one blow. For the first time, we had met the enemy on his own home base. Wherever we landed, we had to battle our way ashore. His planes took off from the backlots of Naples and Rome. But even though we paid the attacker's price, we were able to bring to bear from the sea enough strength to dislodge the enemy. We forced him northward up the Italian peninsula. While the enemy is engaged on the land front, our amphibious force can be used against the coasts, can leapfrog behind him, and surprise him as we did later at Nettuno. When we freed the Italian people and demonstrated our ability to land on enemy coasts in greater and greater strength, we came to a turning point in the war. At Cairo, we resolved to hurl our amphibious power against barbarous Japan. At Tehran, we determined to destroy the German armies. To do so, we must first invade the coasts of Europe. The Nazi armies reeled backward under the blows of our Soviet allies. The bombers of America and England are writing the prologue to Germany's eventual destruction. The hour strikes when Germany may be knocked out by invading fortress Europe. The curtain rises. Now it is our turn to stand on an English beach poised for invasion. We have no illusions about the perils and costs of such an undertaking. We remember the ship loaded with urgent cargo going up in fireworks at Salerno. The precious gasoline nursed halfway around the world only to burn in the jungle at Bougainville. And the sad, the bitter cost in life. The wounded flood from Tarawa. The man newly blinded at Salamaua. And those who fell forever everywhere.
I am the resurrection and the life, saith the Lord. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live.
These German-made pictures are the Nazi version of the raid against Dieppe, France in August 1942. They are shown to Americans for the first time as a measuring stick of the cost of amphibious war. He says, the German troops right there guarding the coast were enough to take on the English and Americans, and they smashed them without extra help. Here you can see the aftermath of the fighting I watched at dawn from a British destroyer standing by offshore. Although important objectives were achieved, a critical loss was in landing craft. Cost of the raid and casualties was high. These brave men of ours are now prisoners of the Nazis. This heavy investment at Dieppe taught us lessons that will make our coming attack pay off 1,000-fold.
Das Leben in Dieppe zeigte schon wenige Stunden später wieder sein normales Bild.
He says the Nazis mean to keep Dieppe normal. They mean to keep us from returning to Dieppe or any place in their fortress, Europe. On the rim of the continent, they have piled up fortifications, concealing giant guns. These we must storm. Behind them are railroads and highways to push supplies where we may breach the fortress wall. On the enemy's beaches, we need many things. We must build a tremendous array of landing craft, enough to carry an invasion greater by far than any we have ever staged. This, then, is our challenge. To build a bridge of landing craft to reach the beaches of the enemy, wherever he may be. For across that bridge lies our victory.